Hey guys, it's Gary again. Wouldn't normally plan on doing a video this soon. Maybe I would. Who knows? Um, this is another VCLT thank you to Jeff, Mr. Vinyl Spin. A few days ago, Carm Gorvo31 did a video. Um, he received VCLT from Jeff as well. We received it on the same day. I'm a bit behind because Carm had sent me a huge package. Of all the stuff I finally got to listen to, all the stuff Carm sent me. In general, I like to do VCLT videos after I've reviewed the stuff. The problem this time is Jeff sent me so much stuff that if I waited, I'd probably be doing it about a year from now. So I just wanted to say thanks to Jeff. He sent an amazing array of things. God, I got stuff all over from him. One of the things he sent me so much stuff, I've already misplaced some of it. I think it's in my car. Being unemployed, I don't make a lot of trips. Generally, once a week, I go do my laundry at my sister's house, so that's a bit of a trip. I happened to go see my brother-in-law yesterday, and when I went there, I took the opportunity to take some of Jeff's CDs that he made for me. I took a small selection of the many that he sent. And I wasn't sure what I was going to listen to, and I took some of the quieter things in general. He sent a series. Wow, I got so much stuff here. Where do I start? He sent a series of things called Spatial Atmospheres, and there's at least 4 discs of these. I think there's four discs of these Spatial Atmospheres he took, which are homemade compilations of various things. Those are 2 of them. Holy crap! Though I have this huge. They're here. Trust me. I can't find the rest of the Spatial Atmospheres. Holy. Here's number 4. Thankfully, to avoid too much confusion, oh man, I can't even find number 1. This is how much stuff is here. I can't even find number 1 of Spatial Atmospheres. Did I leave it in my car? It's possible. It's possible. Anyway, he has 2 volumes. Oh, you know what? Maybe I should just show the stuff as I come to it because there's so much stuff here. He sent me some classic live concerts, some things, largely progressive rock things from bands that I actually like from that era. Renaissance, Live 77, which he actually threw on some Hole & Oates stuff from 74, which might be a period I'm interested in because I actually like their War Babies album. That I haven't gotten to at all. Genesis from 72 and 73, pretty much the primo period in my book. I don't know how he does this. I've never tried to do this with my CD burning software. He sent a lot of MP3 discs that he has playlists on. So you're combining different types of files on a disc, and I've always been hesitant to do that because my car plays. Actually, when I bought my car 3 years ago, the only qualification that I needed it to have was it needed to have a stereo that played CDs with burned MP3 tracks on them. I generally hate, almost never do it, take my physical CDs in the car with me. I very rarely take the originals. And because I listen to most of my music from my computer, because I have a really good subwoofer on my computer speaker system, whenever I get a new CD, I automatically throw it right in my computer, put it in MP3 format, listen to it from there. Later on, I'll make an MP3 disc, a CDR, and bring that into my car and just keep that in my car. And the way that I compress my discs, it seems like it's the exact same way Jeff does it. You fit about 8 to 8.5 hours worth of music on a disc. I generally don't mix artists for the most part. I generally do one artist on a disc. So, obviously it's going to be somebody I have a lot of albums by. But it seems like Jeff works the same way, which I really like. And, the great thing with having an MP3 disc player in your car is that when you get things like this, you can bring them right out the car and bring them with you. So he sent me something called MOOCs Sensations, and these discs actually on them, I can put them in my computer, I can see what the tracks are and who the artists are specifically. And when I saw MOOCs, I haven't This I took in the car with me and I ended up not playing it. I ended up playing a jazz disc that he sent me. But I actually already copied it to my computer. I just haven't listened to any of it yet for the Moog sensations. But the first thing I saw that made me think of is Jeff's fantastic video that I just hope he always leaves up. It's definitely a video that's worth going back to see, and that's his Moog. I don't know if he called the video Moog Sensations or Moog Sensations, but it's actually all about Moog albums, specifically a lot of them from the 60s, possibly earlier. He did a nice long video that showcased some of the oddball artists and the albums that came out. And oddly enough, right at the time that he did them, like a matter of days later, a few of these specific albums that he showed actually just got re-released on CD. And they're not by well-known artists. They don't be well-known artists for people that follow the Moog stuff. I can't wait to hear that CD. He sent so much stuff. Wavestar, a band that I was familiar with, doesn't exist anymore. I thought they only did one album. I think there's a guy in the group, I want to say his name is John Dyson, just sticks to my name. Shortly, they had, I think it was Audion, the Audion label, that was very short-lived in about 87, 88, that put out a whole bunch of albums. Larry Fast from Synergy, it was his label. Put out, I'm pretty sure it's those guys that put out a Wavestar album, the one that I have on CD. I didn't know they had recorded 2 other albums, and I know John Dyson, one of the guys in the band, it was just a duo, I believe, went solo shortly after that, I heard. So by the late 80s, or by 1990, he was solo already, but I haven't heard anything about him since. I didn't realize that there's album called Mind Journey that they did from 1984. Jeff said he copied this actually from a cassette, long out of print. But it doesn't look like it was released on CD, but you can't get a CD copy anywhere, not even a used one. I did listen to that. It's quite nice. I might actually like it better than the CD I have by them, to be honest with you. He also sent something that was at one time when they were still a decent channel to watch. Anyway, the Sundance Channel, which has since gone commercial, broadcast the Chet Baker documentary. Fantastic documentary called "Let's Get Lost," which I actually have on, I think I have it on video cassette. That's how long ago I bought it. Was not available. I think it may now be available on DVD. I'm not sure. For a lot of years, it was only available on DVD in England as a British import. And I started watching this again. This is such a fantastic documentary. It's too bad. I talked a while ago about Chet Baker, how his wife, after his passing, had published this book of an autobiography that he kind of started in the early 60s and just stopped, and actually ended, I think, like 62 or 63 or something like that. Very, very incomplete. And just with no explanation about, why or when it cut off, and only really contained a little bit of information in there. And this documentary, which is fantastic, makes up for it because it was a documentary filmed very, very much at the end of his life. In a way, this visual film documentary for Chet Baker is really almost like the equal of Art Pepper's Straight Life book, which Art Pepper and his wife Lori Pepper wrote toward the end of Art's life, which is fantastic, which really, the book itself did cover Art Pepper's entire career. And this is kind of like the same thing for Chet Baker. This is done very, very much at the end of his career and shortly before he passed away. And the Art Pepper book, Straight Life, actually, I had the original version of it printed before Art Pepper died. Went out of print a year or so later. They actually updated it to include, because he only lived a couple years after the publication of the original book. Lori Pepper updated it, filling in the missing gaps of information toward the end of his life. And so Straight Life was just a really great overview of the entire career of Art Pepper, and as good as you can get in a couple hours documentary, because it's very hard with jazz musicians to really get their full life in there. And certainly you can't talk a lot about specific recording sessions and albums and things like that in a documentary. But if you ever get the opportunity to see Let's Get Lost by Chet Baker, which comes from around 1988, it's a fantastic documentary, and I'm glad to finally have it on a disc. He sent me a copy of the Cosmic Jokers album. I guess this is the first Cosmic Jokers album. Something I had never heard of. I'd never actually heard the actual album. I've read about it for decades now. everybody's mentioned it in interviews of the people that were involved with the record label. I believe that was the Aura record label that were basically sued out of existence. They had, they had early Tangerine Dream, I think. The early Klaus Schulze. People, did they have, I want to say they had Manuel Gottschalk too, Asherah, but I'm not sure. Fantastic, very interesting album of a series of jam sessions that I never heard because they went out of print very quick. I'm not sure. I don't think they were ever legally released on CD. I think they came out on CD, but they were illegal copies. Klaus Schulze has talked about them a lot. I've read a lot of interviews with him over the years where he mentioned it, and there's even a mention in a documentary that Klaus Schulze talks about in an interview how the Americans are crazy for this album, and he really didn't think it was anything. But it's actually much better to hear it than I thought it would be, because it was really just a series of acid-fueled jam sessions. But this one, it kind of sounds like a very good krautrock album. Actually, much better than I thought it. It sounds a lot like, this particular one sounds a lot like an Asherah album, Asherah Temple, Manuel Gottschalk album. So very interesting for me to finally hear that again. Sent me something I never heard of by somebody, put together from a cassette, a guy named Randall McClellan. The Healing Music of Rana, which is a 1986 cassette that he sent over a wave file, a wave disc for me, regular, wave disc, which is fantastic. I dumped it in my computer and it's really good. I mean, it's the kind of thing, it's 2 long tracks, about 28 minutes each. The kind of thing you put on and you space out and fall asleep to, whatever, the best way, I mean that. Really, I've never heard of this guy before. Jeff mentioned that it only came out on cassette, and indeed, you really can't really find much about this guy or much in print. But it's a really good synth album. 2 long tracks. It kind of almost calls up that whole experience of the early Klaus Schulze album of just putting them on and just getting lost to them. And the fidelity is really incredible. If he hadn't mentioned in his notes that he copied it from cassette, I would never know. Sounds real good. He sent a few notes in his, and I gotta tell you, I don't think I've ever seen anybody anywhere in my life that's better handwriting than Jeff. I mean, is Jeff like a calligrapher or something? Because I mean, his handwriting is just unbelievable. And I gotta tell you, this stuff, I know he's been working on this for a while because he had sent me an email at one point asking me if I was into classic jazz, classic modern jazz, 50s era stuff. And I said, oh yeah, absolutely. And he compiled this 2-disc MP3 set, tons of stuff on here, called Modern Jazz, 2 volumes, about 8 hours of stuff each in MP3 format, 2 volumes. Oh my God, killer stuff. Even has a note in here. And he warned me, he said, the sonic quality isn't the best. I guess, a lot of the sources for this weren't necessarily CD. They may have been even cassette or old vinyl. And he said, in this modern jazz series, there are some songs with a high degree of hiss and pop, which shouldn't detract from the listening experience once your ears are conditioned. I'm so glad he said that, because I was really expecting, when he said that, kind of like a lower fidelity thing. And I'm like, I hope it's not so. It doesn't get in the way of my enjoyment of the music. And it doesn't, but I'm so glad he put that note in there, because this is the one that I ended up playing in the car, the Modern Jazz Series Volume 1 that he sent to me. And I had it up pretty loud. And I was glad he put that note in there, because I was expecting the sound to be much worse than it actually is. It sounds like a lot of the music may have been copied from vinyl, original vinyl, or possibly cassette tapes, but pretty good quality cassette tapes. And I was floored. This is the one that I took with me, because that I actually played when I went away yesterday, because I figured it would have more up-tempo stuff. I took some of the Spatial Atmospheres, then I'm like, you know what? If I play Spatial Atmospheres while I'm driving, I'll probably be in the middle lane going about 10 miles an hour with people beeping at me. So let me play something that's got some drums and rhythm to it. Now, the bad thing is, and this is inevitable for a lot of the stuff he sent me, was there is so much stuff by so many different artists on here that I'm afraid that my wish list, I keep a wish list on Amazon. I don't know about you folks. I keep my wish list there because it's easy. even if I don't buy from them. So if I find something cheaper somewhere else, I'll buy it somewhere else. But I have my big Amazon wish list. They only fit 2,500 items, by the way, on a wish list. So I quickly filled up the first wish list. I started a second one, quickly filled that one up, which means that 5,000 items are in there because each wish list holds 2,500 items. Now I'm on my third wish list. So that's tell you how many things, even if nothing ever, no albums ever came out, no more movies ever came out for the rest of existence, there would still be enough stuff in the back catalog that's currently out that I want that I still probably will never get unless I live to be 300. I was afraid that when I started playing each and any of these, but I'm specifically picking on the modern jazz one that he put together, has a lot of stuff from the 50s that I played because I actually played it. The very, very first thing that comes on, the very first track, a jazz piano trio track, I could clearly hear. It was recorded in a club. You hear the polite clapping, so right away the disc sets the atmosphere. Acoustic piano, upright bass, guitar must be from the early 60s, late 50s. Drums. People Make the World Go Round. It was an instrumental version of that track, which I know that was a hit when I was a kid. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta have that album, whatever album that's from. And of course, I had to take a look at the listing, eventually when I got home, that listed all of the tracks and who the artist is. It turns out to be Ramsey Lewis Trio from, I think 1964. Absolutely fantastic. And the interesting thing is, as well as I know Ramsey Lewis, which is fairly well, I think I only have one album by him. So right away, the very first track I hear is something I gotta have. I'm like, I'm gonna be in trouble here. With all the, individual tracks from individual albums, there's hundreds and hundreds of things here. I'm going to end up with another 300 things on my wish list. And that's what it seems like, because I kept on hearing one fantastic track after the other. And that's just on one disc. That's just on the jazz disc. And that's just volume 1 of the jazz disc. I'm definitely going to be in trouble. But that Ramsey Lewis thing, I found the specific album that it's from, which is a live album recorded in 1964, just a trio. No fancy backings and all that maybe Ramsey Lewis got known for later on. I gotta have that album. Thankfully, it's in print. I knew I was in trouble. Where do I start? Here's one that I'm gonna definitely put on my computer and bring with me on the road. Something I may have read Archie Patterson, if you know Urock, which was something that was around certainly when I was even in high school. Urock was initially a magazine, I believe. I remember seeing them advertised in other music magazines, and was a mail-order record service and CD service, etc. And I ordered from them as recently as a few years ago, run by this guy Archie Patterson, who wrote books very knowledgeable, especially about the prog era, the original prog era in the 70s. I think they finally just stopped selling music, if I'm not mistaken. I actually had an email go back and forth with him a couple times because I'd ordered from him a Manuel Gotching album that I couldn't get anywhere else at the time a few years back, but it seems like he actually stopped. The Urock name is still around, and he's published a book, I know. What I didn't know is he did a lecture series, which on the roots of European rock, at volumes 1 through 7, which Jeff also sent me on disc. This is another thing that's going to be a fascinating listen. I love listening to when I'm driving too. I love music, but I love listening to audiobooks and that kind of thing. Also, especially when I'm driving. So this is gonna, and this is getting dumped on my computer anyway. But I got so much stuff here. Another thing that I didn't know, I wasn't 100% sure what was going to be on here. Primitive ethereal with playlist. So it turns out to be, I actually have, he did send a few lists here. And look at them. It's got these cool fonts going on. And he sent a paper that has a listing of all the stuff that's on here. As well as the Spatial Atmospheres, those 4 discs that I showed. So he sent a really, really nice printout for reference of what's on here. The Spatial Atmospheres, which I haven't played, but which, you know what, most of this stuff I actually know. And I'm really excited about the ones that I don't know. He has a Peter Michael Hamill thing on here, which is from one of the albums of his that I don't have, from Nada, which I don't have the Nada album, which I have to get, I guess. I guess I have to get all these. But he threw some Pink Floyd things on here, which I kind of knew, a Steve Hackett thing, which I knew, Anthony Phillips, which I knew, some Genesis stuff that I knew, Terry Riley from the Lifespan soundtrack, my favorite Terry Riley of all time, Astronaut Temple's things, which I was familiar with, an Emerald Webb thing, which I know the band, but I don't have that particular album that he put that selection from. Vangelis stuff that I have, fantastic. But there's a few things on here, and I don't know this guy Emtidi or Emtidi, Emtidi, totally unfamiliar with. Artist from Germany, included some tracks from 1972 on there. So I already copied those into my computer. Have not listened to them yet. There's so much stuff. Johannes Smalling, who I don't think I have any of his solo works, who was a member of Tangerine Dream, so he included something from one of his solo works. Oddly enough, he included something from Brian Eno's Music for Airports, which I've had since the day it came out, pretty much. But oddly enough, he's got good taste. He included my favorite track from that album. To go back to this Primitive Ethereal thing, this playlist that he sent, it turns out it's kind of early ambient stuff, essentially from the 70s, pretty much like 72 to 81. It looks like a lot of stuff. It's interesting to hear that, and this one I played briefly in my living room actually, because it's got a lot of stuff that I already have that I know, but it's so interesting to hear them out of sequence and out of order, which is nice. It's nice to hear things that you're very familiar with, that you always listen to from the original artist's album, and all of a sudden it's mixed in with other things. It's interesting to hear it in a different context. So it's got some Edgar Froese from Epsilon and Malaysian Pale, which is now my have. Steve Tibbetts from Safe Journey, Tangerine Dream, something from Stratosphere, some Popol Vuh that I have. The things that I'm interested in he actually has the whole Zeit album from Tangerine Dream on here, spread through different things. Fripp and Eno from Evening Star and Index of Metal is my favorite track off of my favorite album by them. Zeit, he's got, I said Zeit, didn't I? John Hassel things. Dream Theory in Malaysia, which I have on vinyl, I haven't played for years, so I'm really interested in hearing that again. Let me see, he does have an Emerald Webb track from an album by them I don't have. Eberhard Schoner, who is somebody that I have one album by, and is somebody that I always meant to investigate further and haven't yet. And he's got a bunch of Eberhard Schoner tracks on here from 76. So those are those which I really liked. I did listen to those already. A couple artists here that I'm not familiar with, and those are the ones I'm really, really excited about hearing. And I think that's you know what, I think I got another disc somewhere else too. I can't. Oh my God! My wish list is going to expand. I'm approximating by probably at least another 200 items after I hear the very first track, the Ramsey Lewis track. It's like, I got to have that album that came from. Okay, so this is just my long-winded way of saying thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate all. You could tell there was a lot of time put into this. You could tell some of these compilations, which I do. When you've got an MP3 disc that can hold, depending on how you crunch the tracks down into MP3 format, I generally do it in a format that gets about 8 hours to a disc, 8 to 8.5 hours. And it seems like Jeff works the same way. So imagine making a 2-disc compilation that holds 16 hours worth of stuff, and you're drawing from all different albums. It takes a long time to put that together, and especially that 2-disc jazz collection. It's got so many tracks on there. Some of the tracks are only 3 and 4 minutes long. So you can imagine how many tracks fit on there. All different artists from different sources. Really tasty stuff. Very much a 50s vibe to it. Even the stuff that might be a little bit outside the 50s kind of still has that flavor to it. And thankfully, just, great. A disc that you can put on and play for 8 hours. I even have this cheapo surround sound system that I got for nothing, and I hadn't had it hooked up for years and I actually hooked it up in my living room last week. And for the sole purpose of playing music discs, because I don't have a TV in there to hook it up to. But I have a cheap little CD player that will play MP3 discs. And I hooked that up to the surround sound system. And this is the kind of thing you could just put on and you could, do your dishes for 8 hours, which really doesn't take me 8 hours to do my dishes. But, take one of those discs and put them on there and you could fart around for hours without having to change it. So Jeff, thanks, buddy. I think you know me. I think I like doing my VCLTs after I get through the majority of stuff. But there's, how many hours you got on it, man? Tons and tons of stuff. So I just wanted to say thanks. I'm actively going through this stuff, getting excited about what I'm hearing and making my wish list grow ever all the more. So thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. You're the best. I know there's a lot of work that went into putting these together. And I know you had sent off a whole big thing to Carm as well, which is just great. So I appreciate it. I'm going to be going through this stuff forever, so you may end up getting emails from me, If I can't find album information about some of these, I might end up asking you. Okay, buddy. Thanks, everybody. I'll be back doing a regular video at some point fairly soon. Not 100% sure what it's about. But appreciate everybody watching. Hope everybody's having a great week. Take care.